as I'm attempting to just to tweet it to let people know so they can see it. We're probably live right now. I'm just waiting for okay, let me try to find it. There we go. Let me get this out of the way. Focus on you here. Okay, now I'm gonna be tweeting right now before we start. Tweet. That way I can tag you easily right here. There we go. I got you right here. Okay, boom. Okay, it's tweeted. So here we go. I'm just gonna start off, dude. This is something new, and I'm glad I'm doing something like this. Is
Yeah,
just
like I said, it sounded like fun.
yeah, it's something like Gamer Show what we're doing, and Gamer Show knows to jump in anytime they want to if they any of the other guys. But I'm Mr. Switch, and I'm here with ECHOPLEX420247. We go by Chris, and I want to welcome you into the live stream podcast.
It's my pleasure. Thank you
And I'm
for
glad to
having me.
have that. But yeah, I'm glad to have the opportunity to not only but get, let's say, like YouTubers, or do you YouTube at all, or not just a Twitter page?
No, just on Twitter. Yeah, it's funny. Years ago, I remember somebody had mentioned because my uncle was running for councilman and he needed help to post something on YouTube. And this is like going back to the early days. And I remember trying to figure out how to like post this video, and I got it posted, and I got all this feedback. And my friend of mine was like, you could monetize that. And I was like, I had no clue, like it was all alien to me. And, um, years later, as retro games started getting popular again, like everyone else, probably watched more YouTube than regular television.
Yeah, yeah. But you
But
did
no,
notice.
no
Go ahead.
streaming, just, a regular Joe.
Oh man, you have noticed very much recently how retro gaming is making a comeback. Did you notice that? It's just like as now as I'm like with Nintendo and just retro, just seems to be everyone seems to be talking about it or playing it more. At least for the friends I got and what I'm noticing. All right, I'm not sure on your end. What do you think?
Um, I mean, it's something that's at least, something that's been growing since I would say probably 2011. Um,
Yeah.
I think the Wii was a big part of that. With the the Wii channel and all that stuff, it was a way for mainstream people to play a lot of games from their childhood that they remember. And I think that's like the first thing that really, kind of struck a chord. And, it's no secret the Wii sold a lot of consoles.
Oh
So
yeah.
that's a lot of people playing these games that they missed out on. And I think the bug kind of started with there. And, that kind of got people curious, and, I mean, I know from my own experience, I was curious, and then I started, digging out stuff out of the closet and, playing the original stuff. Cause I was like, well, the Wii is great, but, I want to play Baseball Stars, like, how
Oh
do you
man,
play
for
that
real.
on the shop? You know what I mean? So that's what got me, back into it, and then I, started playing the modern consoles again, but the stuff just became so, I don't know, repetitive that I went back to, the retro stuff, with the Wii U. And, but I think that's, I would say, kind of what really started a lot of the stuff, and even look at, the time frame of when a lot of the YouTubers started, getting popular. It's that probably 2012, 2013 area.
Yeah, I've noticed within the last several years, it's like a big jump from how.
But I just think that it, it's it was a fresh breath of air for a lot of gamers. Especially that's why I think a lot of these indie titles succeed, because it gives you those retro feels. And then of course you have art, with as far as things like Stranger Things. You have other things that are kind of bringing that retro feel, back.
Yeah, so let's see. We spoke a little bit earlier. So right now, I mean, in terms of when you first began, I want to hear a little bit more about how, let's say, your gaming life story, how you started off with Atari and then the arcade generation. Can you give me more on that?
Yeah, like I said, for a lot of people, from my generation, arcades were a big part of that. And as I mentioned, when you look at the library of games, especially the early consoles, your Master Systems, and even going to up to the 16-bit era, or even beyond that, everything was about replicating the arcade experience. We were always trying to bring that home. Um, as we talked earlier, a lot of the black box games on NES, they're arcade ports. Most of our favorite games were arcade ports. Even something that's popular right now, Battletoads, that was an arcade game.
Oh,
A lot of people don't know
yeah.
that. Street Fighter too. It was huge. When I was in middle school. I remember, people going nuts, trying to get the Genesis copy because it had the blood code in it, all that stuff. So it was, the arcade played a big part of, the home consoles, more than I think people really, think. It wasn't until, you get into the probably sixth generation of consoles where, stuff is now becoming more narrative and, story driven. With the graphics of PS2 and all these other game, consoles, they're able to actually, show, full images that are reminiscent of, watching a movie.
Yeah, definitely was kind of like as I was growing up, getting out of that retro thing into some of the new current stuff. It's just kind of I still want to go back to. I always go back to Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past, but I'm the Super NES, the original system. I just want to go back to that all the time, and it's just not always the games we have today. It's just I play all the good stuff. Like right now, I'm playing let's say Assassin's Creed or things like just a lot of these games that have just been around more recently compared to the past. But it's just always that nostalgia you get from the good old days. That kind of we were basically raised on that. I grew up with that my whole life, and just it started with Atari, and then that kind of thing, and it just again just always you always feel that. Is there a game that you always feel that always takes you back to that same nostalgia feeling that you just love that one game? Let's say, like, do you have a favorite game or
Um,
something you
Probably
remember?
the original Legend of Zelda.
Original, first one.
Yeah.
Wow, that takes it back too. That was always hard to me. And did you ever beat it?
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, and again, that's one of those games where the school ground talk was important. Trading secrets with your friends. Like, oh, I heard you could burn this bush, and there's a staircase there, or um, talk about codes. Like when I was talking about Mortal Kombat. I remember it was a huge deal when you had a friend that had the game facts print out, for all the moves and all the fatalities and stuff like that. But no, Legend of Zelda was a big deal. Because again, being an arcade kid, that's why I still love shoot 'em ups and those style games because I'm an arcade kid. But the Legend of Zelda was one of those games where it was just like, this is different. This is not your just spam the fire button. You had to actually think. And it was groundbreaking, and that's why it always sticks with me. And I always usually say that's probably my favorite game of all time.
Awesome. Mine is a Link to the Past for sure. Just a little bit after yours, but Zelda just kind of always calls you. As much as I love the current Zeldas, it's just that Link to the Past just brings me back. I still have to be on a mission to go back and finish part one and two. So I played them through, but when I was younger at the time, I was too young or wasn't as good. Or I think in grade school, at least in my class, I was more teased because I had more Sega friends,
Hmm.
and they were like, and I didn't even want to talk about it. I was always like, they always outnumbered me at the moment. Even though I knew Nintendo was still doing better at the time, but I didn't know it then. But still, like now you can just bring it out, talk about your stories, and just remember all the good old days. So, in arcades, I'm thinking like I got an actual arcade in my house. I'm at. It's sad that I bought it to keep it, but with this pandemic things happening, I'm actually currently selling my Mario Bros. 1983 arcade. It's original in the house, made in Japan, number four, and it's like so. Hopefully, the person I'm looking at, who's everyone's asking, and I have to make sure that this guy's not just taking it to sell it. He's taking it because I'm looking at his background when they ask questions. So I want to really sell it. Who's gonna enjoy it? So I got a guy that's
Yeah,
asking a lot
hopefully
of
it goes to a
questions.
good home.
Yeah, I want it to go to a good place where he can enjoy it. And again, because right now, like it's like, well, I don't have that much room anymore. We bought these new sofas, and it's like against the arcade, and I might play it a few more times before I let it go, which is okay. It's not heartbreaking, like I got a lot of good stuff, a lot of my old classics and things like that. But yeah, definitely those good old days. Anything else you want to mention about the arcade era or the Atari, or how you enjoyed the Atari? Or
Um, you know, I had the Atari. You know, I played it. Probably just like a lot of other kids. But I was fairly young at that time though. So, but I have vivid memories of playing the console. But the big thing for me, and when I tell people, like how I even really the pathway I guess to the modern consoles was my 2600 actually broke. So I remember being bummed because I had a whole bunch of games. Because during the crash, games were dirt cheap. So I remember going with my dad to like an odd lot or something like that, and just for my birthday, he would just like go ahead and pick out games, and games were like 3 for $1. They were just dumping everything. And I remember buying a whole bunch of those iMagic games, like because I remember Demon Attack became one of my favorite 2600 games, and
nice.
that was one of the games I got from Odd Lot. But I remember being bummed, not being able to play that. And then I wanted to get a 7800 because, it was backwards compatible. I could use all the games I had then. And then I remember, seeing the commercials and thinking to myself, like, oh my God, like pole position looks so much better on the 7800 than it does on the 2600. But then right around that time, I grew up in New Jersey. So we were one of the, test beds for the Nintendo. So I remember getting, I didn't get the 7800. I ended up getting a Voltron for my birthday.
Voltron is still good.
Yeah, hey, no doubt. But I remember then the NES commercials started rolling in the tri-state area, and then just seeing the Gyromite and Rob, and it was mind blowing. And I remember thinking to myself, like, that's what I want. And I had no idea, I kind of mentioned it to my dad and kind of forgot about it. And then one day he came home, and he had the bag, and I opened it up, and it was the deluxe set. So I was like, one of those early Nintendo adopters. And, I always tell people, like, that's how it all started, ever since then, definitely hooked. Yeah.
Yeah, my dad tells me, he'll tell me even now, like, why do you still play that, or why this, why that? And I said, Dad, do you remember back in 1985 when Grandpa, your father, gave that to us? I think it's kind of your fault you brought that to us. Or
Right.
blame your father. I'll just play with him and be like, that's how it began. Once you get hit with that NES, Super NES, you just, or that main system that just really gets you, and that passion just takes over, and then you can't let it go. Just I remember the first day I bought I was working my first paycheck at Six Flags Great America. I was 15, and that's when the 64 came out. Man, that feeling right there, you'll never forget. Driving back, and your dad's like, my dad's like, what you want to do with that money? He's like, take me to Toys R Us. Like, we went there, picked it up, and man, just that feeling. But yeah, I'm sure you had a lot of your nostalgia feelings too when you felt that one moment when you bought your first system. Do you remember your first system that you bought yourself, or
Oh, absolutely. Yeah.
which one is it?
And it's an easy date to remember because it was the release of Final Fantasy VII.
Oh
So it
wow,
was the PS1 was the first console I actually worked
dang,
and saved up for, And I called up my friend. I'm like, hey man, Final Fantasy 7 came out today. Like, give me a ride to the mall. So we went down and went to Electronics Boutique, or no, it was Funko Land. And
Remember that. Remember that. That's a good stuff.
yeah, and I bought my copy of Final Fantasy 7, and I bought the PlayStation, and I had traded in my Sega Genesis and a couple of games, to help offset the cost. But
This is painful, but okay.
yeah, that's why I joke, because I remember being so sad because they didn't really offer me all that much, and then I remember they had those price sheets with the listing of all the games, and games now that are like $50-$60 were $1 $2 at that time.
Man, so Final Fantasy VII, I'm still playing it again on the Nintendo Switch, and it's like, there's the new remake, and there's the one that I'm playing on the Switch. Same exact thing as the old one. I wouldn't mind playing it on the original PlayStation, but still, man, I just rather play the original than the remake. I'll come around to the remake later on, but have you played the remake at all?
I played the demo, enjoyed the demo. I ended up buying it, but I haven't put all that much time into it, because I mean it's cool, but it's one of those, like, you kind of already know the story, even though I know, I guess they kind of changed some things up, but essentially it's still kind of the same game at its core, so I played it
like
years ago, so I kind of felt like there's so much more to explore right now, that one's gonna have to just sit on the back burner for now.
Yeah, my brother was telling me that he liked the game. There was a lot of changes, but it's almost like he said there was something. I forget how he said it. Sometimes when you walk up to a door, he said the door looked like it was 2D or something like that. There were differences in certain parts of the game, but I was like, well, hopefully he said he did enjoy the game a lot, but still going back to 7, I would say out of all the games I'm big on Nintendo, you know that, but Final Fantasy 7 is still one of my like top 5, top 3 of all time in the history.
The funny thing is that you mentioned A Link to the Past. Had I probably grown up with a Super Nintendo, I would probably be saying the same thing. But I was a Genesis kid. Again, that arcade experience, seeing Altered Beast and Outrun, I was hooked. I was like, that's the machine to get. But yeah, had I grown up with a Super Nintendo, I'd probably be saying A Link to the Past. And going back to Final Fantasy VII, I had not played Final Fantasy 2 or 3, the US versions. My only experience of Final Fantasy before that was the original on the NES. And, I loved it on the NES. So to see 7, I don't know, it just, I guess it's kudos to the marketing team, that I was just like, that's the game I need to get, and that's what drove me to get a PlayStation. My girlfriend had a PlayStation because she used to work for KB, and she had one back in '95 when it first launched, but she never really bought anything for it, so it just kind of collected dust. But I remember, really wanting Final Fantasy VII and going out, and like I said, I was determined to, save up the money and get that.
And you enjoyed the heck out of it, didn't you?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Man, all those CDs that you got to get, like all this, you got to download CDs and play all the CDs. I think it was worth it. I remember playing it back in the time too with my brother, and just being torn apart. When you get your girl stabbed in the back and shit, you're just like, son, no, you're all like, you're tripping, you're gonna cry. And how do you pronounce it? Is it Aries?
Aries,
Aries.
I guess.
So it's kind of, that was like the mind blowing part of the whole thing is just playing that part of Final Fantasy. I've tried the other ones.
I put so much time. I remember, friends calling me, to go hang out, go to parties and stuff like that. And I remember this one time I was trying to get the black chocobo, and my friends were like, "Are you ready? We're on our way to pick you up." I was like, "Yeah. I'm getting into the shower, and here I am, just running around. I'm just running around the field, trying to get this thing, and then they show up to the house, and I'm still not ready, and I'm and just I'm like leave it on pause and then going out. But yeah, I was so hooked to that game.
Yeah, I was definitely from Sony to Nintendo to Sega. There's each like Final Fantasy 7 definitely hit me. I think for Sega Genesis for me it would be always going to Sam's Club. My parents would tell me going to Sam's Club. I'd freak out. I'd be like, I'm going, let's go. And always going there just to go play the intro, Sonic came out, and they had a Genesis display. That was my most favorite Sega experience. Just how many times did I go there and wish seeing no kids there, that, or I wait for the kid to leave, go there and play. Kids will be behind me. I would forget them. I'd just be playing for like an hour, then until my parents told me I had to leave.
See,
Over
that's
there.
how I was with the Super Nintendo, because I didn't have a Super Nintendo. So I remember, my friends and I, we barely had money to go to the movies. So whenever we go to the movie theater, there was an electronics store right next to the theater. So we'd go there and play the demo of Mario Kart,
Oh man.
until the movie got started. And then right before our parents would pick us up, we'd go back in there and play some more.
Oh, for sure, man. It's just kind of. I ended up. That's actually my next. Like I've been buying some of the old classics again. So the next one is Sega, and then I'm gonna get in an Atari. So I'm been collecting because I think at one point in my life, within 2002, I had to sell everything I ever owned because the other half did not admire my hobby. So it was either that or that. So at that time, it was like crushing, man. I just kind of like had to give it all up. And then a few years later, after the divorce is fine, then move on with your life. And now it's just 2017 came back, everything rushed at me, and all the things I wanted just started coming back to me and taking the passion. No matter who, I would say this, no matter what happened in my past, that's just the past, and I'm not gonna go hating. We got two kids, and things like we love our kids, and this is now. So someone who loves what you love doing, or at least accepts you for what you love. In terms of your gaming, like my girlfriend right now, my fiance, she loves my gaming. I love it too, and we will drive from Chicago to New York City just to go meet CND when that first started happening. You ever
Right.
see the CND and the Triforce? Did you hear about them when it all
Yes.
started? When it all started at the time and the Switch was happening. I was watching who was I watching Obi-Wan plays, and it all just convinced me. So we drove down there. I made this silly outfit costume and an entire.
Awesome.
And then you didn't. Okay, I'm gonna have to post it. I made an entire remote control outfit of the Switch controller, and I had a big cape and everything. I went out there and just to go do that, and she's like, "Let's go." So, for real, like, sure. I just made this thing, went there, found C and D and Triforce, and they all freaked out. I got the whole footage, and I'm gonna have to repost that. But it's just kind of when that happened, Triforce called me Mr. Switch, and that's when it happened. So I was like,
It
okay,
stuck.
that's it. That's how it started, and this whole passion just clicked back and started collecting things like that. So getting back what you lose, what I've lost, and just going back what I deserve to be, who I want to be, that kind of thing. So it's good to never be afraid. Don't let it happen. It happened to me, but again, just kind of enjoy those things and remember how things started for you. So, has there been a time where you had to ever give up something because or you had to sell it in order to get a PlayStation, right? Your Sega Genesis. You said
Yeah.
that was
Yeah.
heartbreaking. Any other heartbreaking moments for gaming?
That wasn't heartbreaking at the time because,
Oh, just a little sad. Oh, because they wouldn't
well,
give.
at that, you got to remember, at that time, the mentality was always to get the next better thing. You know, no one was thinking about holding on to their stuff at that point. Like that, your stuff went in the closet, and then it was just like, well, no, this is, again, you want to talk about bits. It was like, yes, that was 16-bit. Now we got 32-bit. Now we got, oh, that's 64. Um, it was always, to get the better, console. It was all about the evolution of the video game. So it wasn't very heartbreaking to get rid of the Genesis because I knew I was getting something that was much better. Um, it wasn't until I think I was in college that I started again. Because I didn't have as much money to buy video games. I kind of went back and I was just like, well, I got this Nintendo sitting in the closet, and I had a ton of games at that time because um, what I had did was because I also collect toys too. So my freshman year of high school, a lot of my friends' little brothers, were still, uh, a few years younger than me. So, they were into, a lot of the stuff that I had, or they got hand-me-downs of, their brothers that were my age. So one thing I got back into was, collecting toys, Ninja Turtles, I think were out. I started collecting those. And I saw some GI Joe figures that were it was like the Tiger Force stuff that was like very reminiscent of
Well,
like
that's
the old.
something more recent now that you're doing. More recent.
Not as much anymore because I have kind of different interests, and I try to spend more time especially with the video game stuff, more so now than the toy collecting. I mean, I've gotten to a point now where it's just like I just don't have the room for it anymore. I could probably fill
Did
up.
you ever give it up or sell it? Or
Yeah, I mean, ebb and flow. Life's always up and downs. In college, yeah, I remember selling a lot of comic books, a lot of my vintage toys, to get money. Whether it was for rent or whatever. So that stuff, yeah, that stuff hurts. When I think about the old toys, because that's all stuff from my childhood. But most of the video game consoles, over the time, I still kept. So when, like I said, when a lot of people got back into it, it was just a matter of going in a Sterilite tub and dragging back out. I think the only console I own now that I didn't own previously would be the Sega Saturn.
Sega Saturn? Do you regret not owning it, or do you wish you had it, or?
I knew like two people that had it, and again, going back to the arcades, I remember going to a friend's house and seeing Children of the Atom on it, and I was just blown away. But at the same time, the PlayStation still felt like it had more to offer, because again, Final Fantasy was kind of like my gateway drug to the RPGs, and there was it felt like there was more than just arcade games for the PlayStation. There was like this whole open world. Got really into Metal Gear Solid, the driving sims, with Gran Turismo. That started my whole, because I'm a car guy, so that was just like, no brainer for me.
Yeah, that was a big thing at the time too. Big games you were just mentioning. How about Dreamcast? You ever had a Dreamcast?
I did. Yeah, I got it late. I was too broke to buy a PS2, so I remember going to Toys R Us and buying a Dreamcast. I loved it.
Yeah, I love it too.
I'm a sports fan as well, so I remember just being blown away, being able to dial in and update rosters. I thought that was a huge deal. But I thoroughly enjoyed the Dreamcast. And then until I moved out to Vegas, and that's when I finally got a PS2, because I actually was working for Sony at the time. So.
Oh, sweet! What you do there?
Nothing crazy. We were basically a tech support team for the Sony PlayStation.
That's not a big deal. That's a big deal, man. That's cool. That's cool. For me, I'd be crazy if I was working, at least doing something. I'd be crazy if I was the housekeeper in Nintendo. I wouldn't care. I'd be like, I work at Nintendo.
The one big perk to the job was that when I started working there, it was the first year I think E3 was held in Las Vegas. So we had a lot of the guys from Forest Hills, California, down in Vegas. So I got to meet like a lot of the big wigs at the time, and that was a good time. We got to go to E3, but yeah, like I said, I was just a regular tech support dude. So working at a call center, nothing special.
Man, I remember I was about to go to my first time E3 this year. I was supposed to be there early January. Made up my mind. I was online looking up, buying. I was gonna buy the ultimate package, hotel room, everything. I guess the big VIP package I was gonna get, with the lady. But of course, what happened, and things started canceling. Before they cancel it, I was like, wait, they're gonna cancel this. This is not gonna happen, and watch it happen. So we canceled like 2 weeks before, and then you finally heard that E3 people, they canceled the whole event because of the coronavirus. With the coronavirus being said, do you think has it made you come back at all to any type of gaming, since we're usually quarantined at home unless you got a job that's essential?
I worked the whole time, brother.
Wow. So what are you
Yeah,
mind saying what you do
no
now?
rest for the weary, man. I worked the whole time. I think the only time off was very early on. There was someone. I work in retail, so I'm a retail manager for a furniture store. We had someone in our warehouse that was sick, so we had to close down. So, we were home for maybe 4 days,
Right.
just after he got checked out, and basically, we opened up, because even when the shutdown happened, where, most places were closed to the public, we were still indoors, separated, and, we were down to, only a few people, but, we had to be there for, customer service issues and stuff like that, our particular store had a bunch of appliances, so our warehouse carries a lot of appliances, so a lot of people that needed fridges and stuff like that for food. So we were still busy at that time, but yeah, I worked the whole time. Like I said, during those 4 days, I don't remember playing that much video games at all. I was just kind of like, like what's going on.
Yeah, man, it's been kind of for me. I guess I worked at a gym and we closed down, of course, and so I have actually been off since then, and then now we're at a point. I'm at a point where I have no babysitter for my little Luigi. He's only a year and a half, and Luigi is just being himself and running around. So I'm taking care of him as the fiance is while working at home. So she hasn't returned to work, but she's been working at home. We've been maintaining ourselves, but like the gym called me back, and I think they just reopened. But the boss, well, he was calling back and like, hey, you want to work with us? Like he was just like really going off. Like, nah, man, I think I'm gonna hold off for a little bit. And I don't know why he just started coughing nasty, and it just kind of like made me a little like, nah, I'm good. But I didn't have no one to babysit my son anyways, and that's where I lost my sitter. And then now I don't want to take him to just any sitter anymore. And we recently just had a scare too. We had someone in the family with the virus, and we all got tested. We all came negative except the other person. Were helping them out and giving them soup and taking care of them at his place. But so it's just kind of it's been crazy since then. I'd still be working at the gym. I was losing weight, things like that. It was all going good, making my payments and everything. And so I managed to just hold off for a while. And so I'm just kind of unemployment is not always going to be the best. Like now they don't give you the extra 600 or whatever. That doesn't really. I never liked doing unemployment, but here I am doing it, and I think I'm just gonna probably go back to work soon. Just have to be safe about it, like everyone else is doing. But when it comes to gaming, I definitely enjoyed my time playing and recreated. That's when Gamers Realm started. It started with in between all this, and because when you're live streaming, and you hit a point where everyone is doing the same thing as you. That's what I mean. I mean myself, and then like they're all streaming the same games or whatever. You reached over 1,000 people. Right up when you get a certain number, you hit a plateau. Now I'm like, I gotta do something different. Think, what's the next best thing? And then the podcast started happening. So now we're here. Now I'm doing Q&A. You're the second guy I've done it. So people say they liked it yesterday. I'm sure people like it today. It's good to be able to interview other people with their gaming experience and like your retro gaming, your retro life. Or is there anything else you want to mention in terms of your retro gaming at all, or just
um
throw in there any other experiences? Did you always have a good time with family members, any brothers and sisters, memories of gaming together? Or was it just you always?
No, like I said, I'm an only child.
Okay,
I have an older brother from my mom's first marriage. So,
okay,
and he lived with us briefly, and like I said, I used to tag along in the arcades, but I was mainly, a loner, so yeah, video games, were a big part of, a lot of my entertainment, but, just, I'm fortunate to be of that, that time to really have enjoyed retro games, um, people, you'll hear numerous stories about people's fond memories about, retro gaming, being able to, like I said, trade secrets about games, I think I was an original member of the Nintendo Fun Club. I remember that being a big
man.
deal. Um, seeing the first
Little
copy of
fun
Nintendo
club.
Power, renting games, trading games with your friends. It's like you don't do that stuff anymore. Trade games with friends. It's like, because
I know,
what are
man.
you gonna
That's
do?
crazy.
Lend somebody this and have them install it for 2 hours and finally get to play the game.
I think the
Um,
best gaming memories come from that time you're talking about. I think so too, when the codes and everything like that, and just The first you said Nintendo. I had
Yeah,
14
like
years.
again, going back to the arcade games, I would ride my bike to different parts, different towns because you heard of an arcade game, like I remember, going, I heard there was Map Mania, right by the projects, and I didn't care, if I was like, it was like a bad part of the neighborhood, like, I was determined to go play some Map Mania, or there was different, places, pizzerias you'd go to just because you knew they had a certain game,
Now, do
and
you
then it
have
was
any
word of
arcades in
mouth,
your area?
What's that?
Any arcades in your area that do they? Because like in my area, I just found two joints, two good ones. I want to go to eventually when things cool down and just go back to the arcade places that people have kept or rebuilt. Any of those in your area?
Yeah, I
Arcade
mean,
like
I'm in, like I said, I'm in Las Vegas, and as we mentioned earlier, retro is big now again. So there's a couple
okay, yeah,
places
yeah.
here in town that are retro themed, and are bars, and that have arcade games. A lot of the classic games and classic consoles to play. But nothing like when I first moved out here to Las Vegas. There was one place that was huge, and I remember going there and just all the memories just flooded back, because it was just like, oh my God, it was like that feeling, of being in the arcade, the sounds and everything. You talk to any arcade junkie, and they'll tell you the same stuff. You hear those familiar sounds going in the background, um, and at that time, you could really tell arcade games were kind of shifting because, there was a lot more driving games, the driving sim games. I used to play a lot of Initial
Yeah.
D at that time. But, Namco and Sega, like they're huge in the arcade because, they did a lot of driving games, a lot of the rail shooter type games, and that's one thing I noticed, like I think somebody asked me, when was the last time I went to an arcade? And I mentioned, it was like probably like 4 years ago. And I went to a Dave and Buster's, and, they had like a few games, but it was mostly that, driving games and, rail shooters.
Yeah, you're
And,
right.
I had a good time, but at the same time, it was just kind of like, you know, wow, they don't even have
you
like,
want more. You want more
a
of it.
double dragon machine, you know?
House of the Dead, man. If they had that, and some of those shooters and things, it's hard. It's hard to find it, but there are those people who have been collecting and refining these classics and bringing it together, and just like I can't wait to. I was about to go. It's supposed to be for my birthday in August, and we didn't go. Of course, it's closed now. So it's just as things slowly get back, we can get back to our retro arcade, games and go back to those places and hopefully find a good place for you to enjoy, for me to enjoy, and so it's cool. It's definitely
Yeah.
this interesting part of our lives. So I would think let's see, Nintendo Part Magazine for me, having 14 years, I recently gave them about a year ago. I gave the entire set to one of my favorite YouTubers. I drove all the way to New York and I gave it to them because they wanted to collect them now. So I said, sure, here you go. And then we ended up having some pizza, chilling together, and they welcomed me to their home. So it was a really nice experience. But again, just at least gave it to someone who I knew was gonna take care of something I collected for 14 years. Every month, waiting for that magazine. It was just
Yeah,
awesome.
the funny thing about Nintendo Power was I didn't even really subscribe to it. It actually just showed up to my house because I was a Fun Club member. I think it was one of those things where because my membership just transferred over to it, and I remember just getting it in the mail and like, what's this, And I was like, oh, it's Super Mario 2, you know?
What? That must have been
Yeah.
awesome. Just getting just trying to collect it, look for the posters, and that when you were reading those magazines then for me is a lot better than if I go on YouTube. If I go search it on somewhere like what to do, and if you're gonna cheat on YouTube or something like that, it's nothing compared to how it was just reading that book and looking at that photo with the hint or something that the game would help you with. It's just
Well, I
I
mean,
can
even
still
before, um, here, I remember this was a big deal when I was a kid.
the fish and Nintendo players got killed, man. Dang,
So
man.
yeah, this is funny because I tell people, when I first played Metroid, I drew maps out with my friend on graph paper,
I have
and I was that committed, and that's what you had to do back then, But I remember, getting this and seeing the map and just being like blown away, like, oh my God, like this is so much easier, like looking through all this rather than my graph paper map that I drew. But yeah, again, going back to, like I said, the tips and stuff like that, because, like somebody always knew something.
Yeah, man, Metroid though. Whew, man, that's out of everything I played now, it is my most wanted right now with Prime 4 with the whole you heard of, I'm sure you heard of it, or maybe you have when they were remaking it a few years ago, and then the team that was on it, they ended up, I guess, whether they fired them or whatever, they canceled that, and then now they got the some part of retro, and they got some people from the designers from the Halo, Call of Duty, Borderlands. They're all in there together remaking this new Prime 4. So something I think is going to be so dramatic. I played the first one, from all the way across. It's my favorite major franchise. I think. Plus, I love Mario Bros. And things like that. But yeah, Metroid is definitely that one game I can. I always go back to Super Metroid. Always go back to that. Just
Yeah,
if
like I
you
said, again, I didn't have a Super Nintendo, but I would probably be echoing your statements. But, like I said, Legend of Zelda and Metroid, those were like those two games that, again, it was just like, it was different than what the stuff that, you were playing in the arcade. And, those are the games that made you feel like, no, this is different than that, this actually, the consoles are a different beast almost.
yeah, no, Jim Earthworm Jim was good on a Genesis. I like that one. That one. Just let's see, Sonic, Earthworm Jim. What games did you like on the Genesis? What games that really your favorites in terms?
Um, at that point, like I was probably a little bit older. I was big on, Fantasy Star.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Again, that's the game I think that never mind what I said about Final Fantasy 7. Fantasy Stars probably really was like the game, that I knew that RPGs was my thing. Like I said, I played a couple of the RPGs on NES, but Fantasy Star 2 was like I didn't have a Master System. I know my friends had Fantasy Star and thinking it was kind of neat, but Fantasy Star 2 uh, just blew my mind. And then I remember playing Fantasy Star 3. I tell a lot of people this story where I played so much Fantasy Star 3 that, I almost failed my freshman year of high school because I had missed days of school to play Fantasy Star 3, you know,
And that one
running
game.
around dungeons trying to find save points. But yeah, like I said, it was those games on the Genesis, sports games, I remember playing Madden, for the first time and being blown away, seeing like, oh my God, like this is a football game, a friend of mine had it, and I went and got my own. But yeah, like the arcade ports, like I said, you had Altered Beast, Outrun. Those were, Sega was a beast, with no pun intended, with the arcade games. So a lot of those games were my favorite. I've always loved shoot 'em ups. Again, that's the kind of the genre, arcade genre. But those were probably the big games that I played on the Genesis, and that's why I said like it wasn't very heartbreaking because when I went to the PlayStation, because I never really had a whole bunch of Genesis games. I had a ton of Nintendo games, but not so much on the Genesis because at that point, like I said, I was probably in high school and you're kind of transitioning a little bit, where it's just like, okay, like I'm trying to have a social life, I'm trying to get out of this awkward phase in my life, but so that's why the next thing was the PlayStation, because by then I'm already in college, and you have nothing but lots of extra time besides school, when you're in college.
So right now you're kind of playing. You've been recently playing PS4. Is that
Yeah, like I
anything?
say, I have pretty much all the most important consoles. I kind of flipping back and forward. As a Ghost of Tsushima kind of got me interested, so I picked that up. But at the same time, I was kind of thinking like, well, I've been neglecting this console for so long, because I've been playing, other things. I mainly played most of the stuff on the Xbox One X just because, the multi-plat games, but I have been playing a lot more PlayStation 4 lately. I still play, the retro games mostly though. That's always my thing, and the nice thing now is, again, there's so many consoles, that are, uh, especially being an adult, it's much easier to get these things now, and a lot of the stuff, like I said,
Yeah.
I already had, but I mean, if you're savvy, you can find this stuff dirt cheap, someone's always looking, looking to get rid of their stuff, because they think it's just junk in their house, so.
Are you going to be selling your PS4 for PS5?
No. Now I hang on to them. Yeah, in fact, I bought a PS4 Pro recently, and the PS4 now is in the bedroom because the TV in there doesn't, the Netflix apps don't work through the smart TV stuff. So that's kind of my answer to the Netflix problem.
Yeah. So I think, how about, are you considering the PS5 or any of the Xbox? Does that interest you now, or it's kind of hard for me. I decided the PS5 over.
The last console I bought, I would say there's probably only two consoles I ever got on launch. The original Nintendo, as I mentioned, my dad picked it up for us early on, and the Switch. I did buy the Switch the day it was released.
What do you think of the Switch?
Yeah, I kind of, I know some people took my my tweet about it, a little too harsh, but no, and I was exaggerating a little bit.
You can say whatever you want to say, man. Say what.
No. I'm very honest. I do, and I did enjoy it quite a bit. I was excited like a lot of people. I played, the hell out of Breath of the Wild when it first came out. I'm such a Zelda dork that I did buy it on the Wii U also. But I played it, and it has its merits, but I'm at this point, 3 years into it, I'm looking for a lot more. I don't want it to make the same mistakes that the Wii U did, because that was one of the big issues with the Wii U, was that, most of the good titles didn't come out till late in its life cycle. And, I think that, even for those that were aware of the Wii U, kind of abandoned it for other consoles because they felt like, Nintendo doesn't really have anything to offer me anymore, other than, rebuying my old retro games on the Wii eShop, the Switch just doesn't have, like I said, enough to offer me. That's why, I'm hoping, because I kind of think that maybe they hit a wall as far as, what the hardware can do. And I'm hoping that's not the true, because you're hearing all these rumblings about a Switch Pro coming, and I'm hoping that's not the deal.
Yeah, I heard about it next year.
And it's a possibility that, they just hit a wall and, can't do what they want to do, in for these games, with the current hardware.
I'm wondering about.
I do enjoy it. I have, quite a few games for it. But I guess, a lot of it is I'm spoiled, to be honest, because I have every single Nintendo console, and it's readily available. I have a CRT to play it on, play it the way it was meant. I have, like I said, most of the substantial consoles. So it's not a big deal for me to, like, I remember before I was into all this stuff, I love compilation discs, so I can see the point of view of someone that's new, or, that doesn't want all this crap in their house, that just wants to have everything on one console, like I totally get that, because like I said, I was one of those guys that bought the compilation disc, the Street Fighter collections, the shoot 'em up collection, or whatever it was, to play some of my favorite games from the past on the newer consoles. Now I'm a little more pretentious about it because, certain things don't play or feel the same way, and for me, that was like the big reason to get another CRT was that, trying to play my, Punch Out, excuse me, on the NES Classic. And I was just like, I can't even get past Soda Popinski. I was like, there's no way that, my skills have diminished, that badly. And, soon I remember getting the CRT, and as soon as I fired it up, it was just like, I made it to Tyson in one, shot. And it goes, so it was really that muscle memory of years of playing, video games that, just like I knew there was something different. But like I said, I get the appeal of the Switch, but like I said, I'm spoiled because I have access to all this stuff. I had a Wii U, so a lot of those games that a lot of people missed out on, I've already experienced. And there's always, in any console's library, there's always going to be those few standout titles. And every console has its niche, but there's always, the standout titles. Because take the Genesis, for instance. There's probably a dozen Sonic clones, in the Sega library, but how good are they really? Like there's a reason why Sonic stands apart from a lot of those other games. And that's like how I kind of feel with a lot of the indie stuff that's on Switch, because it's just like, it just makes you want to play the old games, because they're trying to give you those retro feels, but I can just go play Mega Man, if I want to, so that's where, I feel a little bit disconnected from, the Switch's library and a lot of those kind of games, because, a lot of them are, retro ports, but other stuff, I do enjoy. I love Mario Odyssey.
That was a great one.
I bought, the special edition for Xenoblade Chronicles 2. I played a little bit of that. Octopath Traveler, was another big one. I bought the special edition for that. So, I mean, there's a lot of games, on there that, that I do enjoy, so it's like, it's not like I hate the Switch. I don't use it as much portably, but it got to the point where, if I'm being honest with myself, it feels more like a successor to the 3DS more than the Wii U.
I would say
if that makes sense, with the style of library it has so far. That's how it feels to me. It feels more of like the successor to the 3DS than the actual Wii U.
I'm trying to figure out, like, as I enjoy the Switch, I like a lot of the games. I'm enjoying, a lot of these ports. There's a few good games that are not ports, but very few. I am disappointed with the NES and Super NES library. They don't give you enough. Like, why can't I have Batman Returns or something like that, or Ninja Turtles and blah blah blah? But there's a lot, like on the Wii. The Wii had a lot, everything from your Geo, your 64, all that good stuff. Why is it so hard for you guys to do it on the Switch? So I mean, I got my disappointments with it too, and that's why I got a lot of these indie games too, like Brothers, and it's like a Tale of Two Sons. I'm just getting these other games and trying to enjoy these side games and things like that. Mario Kart 8 is one of the big 8 Deluxe, one of the big games I'm playing. Again, another port. So I definitely would agree that it is disappointing. That's what I'm wondering too about this Prime 4. Is it going to be? It's going to be a powerful game. Can they really? Can a Switch really stand it, or is it going to have to be this so-called for this Pro version that they keep talking about and see if it comes out? And
I just think Nintendo kind of lost their way, because you think about during the first 2 years, they were almost, it was almost a month, every month a game was coming out. They would have their big title, obviously, during one of the quarters, but usually there was always a filler, like you had like a Kirby Star Allies to kind of tide you over until, something like, I don't know, I don't even remember what was it at the time, but, say a Smash Brothers, you know what I mean? Before there was Smash, they always had these kind of filler titles in between, something like a Mario Party, which was a huge disappointment on the Switch, by the way. But
I agree. I'm going to agree.
They were on pace, and then they just kind of slowed down after Smash. And then that's kind of where I started to lose interest with the Switch. So just like, what else is coming out? Like, I don't care about these ports, I already can play them on the Wii U. A lot of the stuff are remastered 360 PS3 era games. I don't care for that, because again, I can go play those games, on those consoles if I want to. And that goes again, I know a lot of people are, will say, well, you can play them on the go, that's just not me, but, for those people that enjoy that, I think it's great, but that's where, like I said, my disappointment comes with the Switch, because I just feel like, where's the other stuff,
I hope they're not trying to, or they're waiting for something much much bigger. They see the thing is, if they make something, I'm sure they'll have another system after the Switch stuff, and it just better be to where everyone else is now. Stop going, you know, get to the level of where everyone else is currently, and do your old retro stuff and all the stuff, all those kind of things. But give us what we see on PS4 or PS5 coming, or the Xbox, because they're gonna keep on climbing. Nintendo has to catch up at least on that part. As much as I love Nintendo, I still love a lot of games. One of my other favorite games of all time is The Last of Us. That's not on Nintendo. Last of Us 2 was garbage. I mean, did you ever play any of those?
I played the first one.
First one was amazing. That's all I gotta say. And two actually was really, oh man, a beautiful game. Scenery, all the graphics was awesome for two. It's just all around story wise, kind of like they threw us off balance. You probably might have heard that and maybe heard the stories, but it's to a point where people are demanding a remake of two. I don't know how that's gonna happen, but man, oh man, the expectations for that were so high. But that's why I'm just gonna take one as the game one, Final Fantasy VII, Link to the Past, Ocarina of Time, some of my main games and things like that. But yeah, just disappointment. Let's get to the closing of the stream. What is your biggest disappointment in gaming? Whether it's any game system or any experience you might have been disappointed with, or just was it the Switch, or any time where you just lost it and game something a system just didn't do it for you, other than Switch.
I never disappointed, you know what I mean? You know, there's good, there's bad, but at the end of the day, it's never just like, some of these people that just are so extreme with, their emotions about, video games or any, thing that, you're, a fan of, whether it's a sports team or whatever, like sports for instance, it's like some people are just, you see people breaking their TVs and stuff when their team loses, and just like, I don't
Oh
get
yeah,
that.
yeah.
I don't get that kind of disappointment, like that's insane. It's like, you spend a lot of money on that. Like, why would you do that? Because your team lost. I know, I'm quite cynical, but I'm never disappointed at anything really. I don't hate. You got to
That's good.
congratulate.
We can get mad every now and then. Just I know people that punch holes in walls or smash controllers and break them, and or you lose a race in Mario Kart. There goes the controller. You got to go buy a new one. All that happened that you see, or whether some of my brothers have done that, and people I know, it's like I'll have to tell my son. I see him stressing out. Now it's not the way I did it before. So why are you stressing? Because someone online beat him or something, someone smack talking, and he doesn't approve that, and he gets angry. So I have to help him out more. We had it more easier compared to now. These kids get bullied or tempered by other kids or other people online, so it's a whole different world compared to before. So it's kind of like my son's good on there. I kind of train him, be like, look, if you don't like this game, or if you're getting upset, move on to another game. Because if I see you flipping out, you're losing that game. So he goes straight to another game. I'll buy him something different. You'll get this. Just kind of make sure. But yeah, you look like you've been well with your games, no matter what. Nothing really disappointed you as much. You just kind of enjoyed your gaming life. So it's been cool. It's kind of one way
Yeah,
I.
some things are really good, and some things are mediocre, and then there's some stuff that's not so great. But in the end, it's all subjective. Just because I like something doesn't mean somebody else doesn't enjoy it.
Yeah. So awesome, man. Look, Retro Styles has been here. We got a few people that have been watching. We got let's see, Retro. We got Josh. We got Zach. So these guys been popping up and just kind of retros on them. See, there's always going to be ups and downs in gaming industry, first world problems. Let's see. PS5 is not backwards compatible to PS1, 2, and 3. Hey, that's a bummer. I think I remember hearing that. It's only compatible to 4,
Yeah, I
but
mean, going back to your earlier question, like I said, the problem with the console releases is always what is there to really play, and one thing that I think a lot of people kind of still lose touch, it's which is funny to me because it's like we all kind of deal with it on a daily basis, but pandemic has slowed a lot of things down. Life is not normal, so the fact that we don't know much about either console, I mean, that's just life. Like nobody knows anything. There's a lot of people that don't know if they're going to have a job the next day. So and obviously with distancing and everything like that, as I mentioned, like at our warehouse, like we're behind on deliveries and all kinds of stuff because we have to have a smaller crew because of distancing and stuff like that. So these guys are definitely affected by all this stuff. So I think they want to be optimistic and hope for the best, just like, you heard, movies talking about in theaters, until it got to the point where you're watching Bill and Ted 3 at home.
right,
So,
right. Mulan's
there's
Friday.
only so much that can be done, so something like this, it wouldn't be a surprise if it gets released, say in January or something like that, it's very possible, but I'm not in a big rush because the way I see it is that there's just not enough for me to want to have it right away. I waited with the Xbox and the PS4, and even then, I remember being disappointed because I just remember like all there is remastered games of 360 and PS3 games. If you think of it, I bought The Last of Us remastered PS4, bundle. The Xbox One was a Master Chief Collection bundle. These are all games I played before. Yes, they look great, but in the end of the day, you're still playing the same game.
You just turn on the brightness.
And that's what made me again, want to play my retro consoles again. Was the fact that it was like this is just the same old. They just look better. And then later on, and that's why I mentioned, that's why I'm buying a lot of games now because a lot of the good stuff didn't even come out till 2017, 2018. So that's probably was the best time to buy, an Xbox or a PS4 was, when, the library actually started to fill out. So I'll probably wait, a little bit, until there's something that makes me want to have it. Like for me, it was, I wanted to play Batman Arkham Knight. That wasn't available on the 360 or the PS3. So I was like, it's time to upgrade, So there has to be something like that for me to, go out and buy the PS5 or the Xbox Series X.
That's what made me decide to. I had to wait. My son already wanted the PS5. I made it official once I heard the new Batman game for the PS5, and then I was watching it, and I was like, "Oh, are you sure? It was the story just changes." Have you seen the trailer? The PS5.
For was it Gotham Knight
Was
or
uh,
Gotham Knights?
I
I think
think
it's
where
called.
Batman is not around anymore, so he gets his
Yeah,
own.
he's dead, and I think it's like Nightwing,
Yeah,
Batgirl.
so that kind of I wanted that. So I'm like, man, I love Batman. Favorite of any character, in terms of comic books or whatever. And between DC and Marvel, Batman is my main. But it's just the game is so awesome. But now yeah, it's a bummer you can't play as Batman. But I do love Robin. You still got Batwoman and things like that. So
Well,
hey,
I think the
guys,
franchise was getting a little long in the tooth, so it's a good switch up.
yeah, it's cool. And next thing you know, Batman faked his death. Now, I hope that just stay where you're at. This is a good change.
Well,
Thank
if the movie does well, I'm sure we'll probably see another game sometime.
Well, shoot, man, all the movies that I'm sure I don't know if you caught on with that Flash movie. Have you heard about that one?
No.
The Flash movie is I guess
Oh
you
yeah, yeah, yeah. You mean the DCU stuff? I'm
yeah
surprised it's still coming out.
yeah they're featuring Ben Affleck Batman and they're bringing back Michael Keaton as the older Batman.
Yeah, I did hear that.
I was
Yeah.
like, what in the heck? And then they got the other new Batman movie, and so I'm enjoying all this Batman stuff for sure. I just bought me like a stack of 17 packs of 1995 Batman and Robin trading cards, and I had to open at least three. The rest I don't know, man. I want to open them so bad. I keep the wrappers nice, and it's just what it is. And I'm still waiting for a. It's been over a month, I guess. It's been about a month. I'm waiting for my Ghostbusters jacket, and waiting for that to arrive. So it's always the retro, the old things that always bring us back. The old movies or the old games, retro games that just compared to the current stuff that it's the same old stuff you're saying. That's what it feels like. It does feel like it's kind of the same old things, and retro just always brings us back. Did you ever enjoy the Ghostbusters at all? The
Yeah.
game, the game was pretty good. I liked the.
Yeah, I mean, again, if you were around that time, Ghostbusters was a phenomenon. You know, a lot of people forget how big that movie really was. Not only because you have three actors, in their prime, but yeah, it was just huge. I mean, I remember my neighbor had, she used to pick me up from school, and she used to have this pin hanging from her rear view mirror, and it said, we came, we saw, we kicked ass. Uh, so, it was huge. And then, of course, the cartoon, and then there was two cartoons because they were trying to capitalize on the popularity of it. There was that's why they had to be called the real Ghostbusters, because they had the other Ghostbusters was with the gorilla and the two other guys in, this rickety car. And then, of course, the one based on the movie, came out, and they were called the real Ghostbusters. But, it was huge.
Oh yeah, for sure. I was just watching part one the other day, and YouTube, you'll find it. It's free on YouTube and things like that. I'm like, I want to get it for Google Play, but it's probably the more of the clear. I want to
It
watch
holds
it.
up.
Yeah, it
It
does,
still
man.
holds
You
up.
can still watch it now, and you're just like, damn, it's like, why can't we go back to this? But you're never gonna get that no more. But even with the new Ghostbusters movie, after the last one destroyed, almost destroyed the series. Um, I don't want to talk about it because it's not even part of it no more. One and two came out. The third one, I mean, this other one with small cameos of the Ghostbusters were in it, and then now you got the new one that's based off of one and two, and directed by the son of the original of Ghostbusters. That's the part three right there.
Yeah, I did play the, going back to what you said, about the game. I did play that because, I remember reading somewhere that Dan Aykroyd said, that is in his mind the third sequel.
It feels like the third one. I haven't finished the game, but halfway through it, I'm gonna restart the whole game in Facebook Gaming Ghostbusters and try to finish it on there, and just in Octoberish. So it's just definitely like it feels like it. Like I love there's a scene where you go in there, and in the movies they never capture the lady that goes from the library. You get to capture that ghost in the game. So oh shit, the books are stuck. Who's this? And you're tripping out. So it brings you. It feels like it with all the voice acting the same. So I got the remastered one, so it's a good experience. So if anyone hasn't tried it, you gotta play it. It's got the theme song on there, and
I haven't played the remaster, but one way I would recommend playing it is on the Wii.
on the Wii.
Because you
Oh
can
right,
you use the remotes as the proton gun, so
man.
it adds a little bit of a twist to the game. Yeah, it's basically the same game, but obviously it has the dumbed down graphics, but it's essentially the same game, but it's a blast with the Wii remotes.
Shoot. So yeah. So you played it on the Wii then.
I have it on the 360, and I also have it on the Wii.
Sweet, sweet. Damn man. All I got is I enjoy my Joy Cons too for a second, for like a minute, but they're not always the best thing to play your old classics. So you have to buy these you know pro controllers, things like that. And I just wish they had something more like an option to do something with like censoring, like the Wii remote. But there isn't. So yeah, I'll probably have to eventually along the line we get the Wii later on or something like that. But
Yeah, I do have the Switch controllers I ordered from Nintendo, the NES ones and the Super Nintendo ones, the wireless. The Super Nintendo actually works fairly well. It's a bummer that there's no home button on it, but I used it quite a bit with I have Mega Man 11 on Switch. And I love the Pro Controller, but that Super Nintendo pad is a gift from
Pretty
heaven.
good. Oh, sweet, sweet. I was gonna ask, does it feel like a Super NES? It does look exactly like it, same size and everything, right?
Yeah. Hang on a second.
Yeah, sure, sure.
I think I have. Yeah, these are the NES ones here. I only use one. This one just kind of like hangs out in the box. Let's see. So. Yeah, this here, it feels just like the real thing. And again, for people that are fans of the Super Nintendo, this is the great controller. In fact, I have Bloodstain, Curse of the Moon on Switch, and this is what I used to play it.
Wow.
So
definitely a good looking controller, man. I got the
that's the thing, it's like, I'm not a huge fan of the Joy-Cons. I've never had any drift issues, knock on wood. But
I had a lot of that, man. Damn.
I'll tell you, the only time I do enjoy using the Joy-Cons was with Super Mario Odyssey. That's the one game where I felt the Joy-Cons are a huge benefit over using a Pro Controller, because there's just so much more moving you can do with the Joy-Cons.
Yeah, I was just replaying that. I just rebought Odyssey, and I was playing it with the Joy-Cons, and I can't play it with them connected. I have to play it separately. That's like the only game right now that I do that. 1-2 Switch when I used to before, and then mostly on actually that's the only game I don't even nothing else. It's that one. So and a lot of problems with the Joy-Cons for a lot of people, and I'm on my third set of remotes. First two were bad, and eventually in time, and hopefully these don't go bad on me. So it was a good.
I had one. It wasn't like so bad. I mean, every now and then it would get a drift, but I just got some isopropyl alcohol and just cleaned it out, and it's been good since. So I don't know. Maybe it's because I don't play it as often as everyone else.
Yeah. Well, good night, Retro. Take care, dude. See you later. Talk to you tomorrow. That's just Retro here. So, but yeah, let's close up. I've definitely had a great time conversating with you.
Same
it was
here.
awesome getting to know you and know more. There's probably more we can talk about. We'll be texting on Twitter and just kind of get to know you more too as time goes, and maybe eventually pop you in on the along the way. Maybe somewhere in October and get you in with the group with the guys. What do you think of that?
Yeah, sounds good. I'm
So
always down. Like I say, one of the things I enjoy about Twitter, is the camaraderie. Because again, everybody has different experiences, and as I mentioned, there's stuff that I played that maybe other kids didn't play. That again, going back to those early days of trading games, it was like somebody might have not grown up with Chubby Cherub, but someone like myself, I grew up with those those terrible NES games. I remember going to a store and getting Go-Go 13, Mickey Mouse Capade, from this store, and like those considered like crappy games at the time. They weren't anything special. But I just remember like I got them dirt cheap, so I played the hell out of them. But you would trade games, and you'd end up with other stuff and you would experience. And again, you talk to other kids, and they're like, well, no, I grew up with this, and this was our favorite game in the household. So it's always fun to get stories from people and get their experiences of stuff that you're passionate about. So that's the one thing I always enjoy. And then of course there's the technical side of it. It's like I'm a huge geek, and a dork when it comes to all this stuff. So when it comes to all the electronic stuff, it's like I don't think I have any consoles that are not modded in one way or another. I love tinkering around with the stuff.
Yeah, I got some of the
So,
guys here that do a lot of modding, and that's the big thing. So so if you're good at that, or like we're sometime, well, definitely not September. I would say maybe we'll do some early October, talk about that kind of thing, gaming and modding and things like that. Just maybe if you know a lot about it, and get you involved in that conversation.
I think it's one of those things that, there's more, more and more knowledge out there now, and it's attributed, and that's definitely, they kind of go hand in hand with the interest with consoles, because you see, I know recently there was a huge spike in N64 and GameCube, and it's not only because of that generation getting older and getting the nostalgia feels again, but it's also, we have HDMI solutions where it's much easier to play these old consoles from your childhood on modern TVs, for those that do that and don't want a CRT, or anything like that. For me, it's always about the CRT. It's like I have, it's playing it on its purest form. That's what it's like. Because I've done the emulation thing, but at the end of the day, it was just like, it doesn't feel right. It's not what I'm used to. As I mentioned, going back with the NES Classic and stuff like that. But yeah, if there was more knowledge about that, I think people wouldn't be afraid to go back to playing their real hardware, because that's the big thing, is that I think a lot of people don't know of good ways of playing their old stuff on the newer TVs, because they probably had that experience where, like, they did hook it up and then it looked like garbage, but I'm always, like I said, pro CRT, so I encourage people to go find a CRT on Facebook Marketplace or something like that, even if it's a little 14-inch, I mean, most of us probably had one of those growing up anyway, so it's no different, and that is even closer to probably what you're used to give you those feels. But yeah, there's a lot of things you can do, like I say, to just get more enjoyment, out of your
Right.
consoles, and then like I say, there's a lot of stuff that especially younger people missed out on, or may not be knowledgeable, because again, everything is so efficient, and where there's a lot of almost like the Netflix generation, you know what I mean, where it's like everything is kind of like ease. A lot of people like the Switch because of that, the digital market, all that stuff, where everything is just all on one thing, and that's kind of what I've done, with a lot of like my systems. I used to have, I still have, a ton of games. Don't get me wrong, like they're all tucked away in Sterilite tubs. But just for ease, I went with all flash card setups. I have, drive emulators, hard drives, with all my stuff backed up on it, just for practicality. Because it's like, I do enjoy playing the real hardware, but I'm definitely lazy and don't care for swapping cartridges in and out anymore.
Yeah, that gets that was a pain then, and it'll still be a pain now. Every now and then I will swap around to it and pull out the 64, but then I gotta connect more things to it, and but just for the heck of it. Eventually, I'll do retro gaming, but that'll be most likely um, Facebook gaming. Now that I switched around this YouTube thing and turned it into a podcast, I will only be streaming like Mario Kart big games. But yeah, that was good, man. See anything else? So you got any questions here, or I think yeah. Let me see. Yeah, I asked those questions. Any questions for me at all, or usually people don't.
No, no. Like I said, like I just, I was happy to do this.
Oh
Again,
man, I'm glad to do this, and
it's always good to, like I said, meet new people, and especially people that are passionate about the same things. Um, and that's what it's all about, is camaraderie. Like a couple, it was like a month or two ago. The retro game brew guys, or what's it called? I did the Gradius, or excuse me, the Life Force High Score Challenge with them. I came in third with that. And that was a lot of fun. Because that's something that like I was like, okay, it's like I'm really good at Life Force. Like this is right up my alley. So, and I got to talk with those guys, and I had a blast with those guys. Those guys are great over there. I definitely recommend you guys check them out too. But like I said, you know, you meet good people, and you know, it makes it all worthwhile.
Definitely building the community is something that I think I just within 2017 I jumped into whole back into gaming and Twitter and everything. Just you get involved and you communicate, and that's I communicated with somebody. They got me the former CEO of Sega a few weeks ago, and that same person is gonna they're gonna try to get somebody else, for someone in the future. Just kind of, I even had chatted with the voice of Mario, the Charles guy, and he's kind of more in terms of he responded and said he's
Yeah, I
gonna
mean,
leave.
there's so many people that are, you know, involved with this. You know, like I know there's, you know, from game developers to artists that did box art for these, you know, games. You know, it's like, you know, I mean, people have fond memories. You know, like myself. You know, going to this toy store and, you know, looking at the games. You know, you just looked at the boxes. You know, like which one were you gonna pick? You know, so you know the guys that drew those art. You know, it's like that. You know, that's it's
That box
everything.
art made a difference. It made a difference just that box art alone by
Yeah.
itself.
So, like I said, you know, it's really cool to interact with some of these people, you know, and, you know, a lot of them are really nice, you know, and I think they're appreciative that, you know, after all these years, you know, people still love what they've done, you know.
So we're bringing it back. So that's what we're doing. Just ourselves. We'll bring it back, and we'll show the world and see what else we can do. So yeah. Thank you again. Thank you again, Chris. Thank you, Retro Styles, everyone who showed up. And again, one last time, I appreciate you, dude. Nice meeting you, and we will stay in contact. I would like to have you in the future gamers realm, and we'll just move it on from there. And I'll say goodbye to everybody who's watching, and I'm gonna click off on the end stream real quick. I'll end the stream, and then I'll continue to in just a moment, right?
Yeah, for sure. It was my
All right.
pleasure. I just realized the sun started to go down. I was like, I don't know if it's hard to see me now.
It did get dark. It did get dark. It got